Commander Zexathara stood on the bridge of his massive warship and smiled. His sharp teeth showed as he looked at the star map floating in front of him. Today would be another easy victory for the great Hegemony Empire. The target was simple, a small blue planet in the far edge of space. The creatures living there were weak and stupid. They had only just learned how to build rockets that could leave their world. Their weapons were basic. Their armies were small and split into many different groups that fought each other more than they worked together. "Sir, we are almost ready to jump to the target system," said his second officer. The tall alien had 4 arms and skin like dark metal. His voice was excited. This would be an easy fight. Zexathara nodded and walked around his bridge. 50 of the Hegemony's best warships were ready for battle. Each ship was as big as a small city and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The crews were the finest warriors in the galaxy. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, just like this one. "What do we know about the target again?" Zexathara asked his intelligence officer. The shorter alien checked his data pad. "The planet is called Target 7739 in our files, sir. It has water and green land. The dominant species walks on 2 legs and has no fur or scales. They breathe oxygen and eat plants and meat. Their technology is maybe 200 years behind ours." "How many of them are there?" "About 8 billion, sir. But they are spread across many different nations. The largest armies have maybe a few million soldiers. Their best weapons can barely reach space. They have no energy shields and no faster-than-light travel." Zexathara laughed. 8 billion sounded like a lot, but they were divided and weak. His 50 ships could easily handle anything they had. "Perfect. Another quick victory for the Hegemony. We will take their world, use their people as workers, and strip their planet of all useful materials." The crew around him made happy growling sounds. They had done this many times before. Find a weak planet, attack it, take it over, steal everything valuable, and move on. It was simple work that paid very well. "Sir, shall I order the fleet to prepare for battle?" asked the weapons officer. "Yes, but do not expect much of a fight," Zexathara said. "These creatures have never seen real warships before. They will probably surrender the moment they see us." The communications officer looked up from her station. "Sir, High Command sent new orders. They want this conquest finished in less than 1 day. They have another target lined up for us next week." "1 day?" Zexathara laughed again. "We could finish this in 1 hour. These primitives do not know what real warfare looks like." He thought about the stories from other conquest fleets. Most weak planets surrendered immediately when they saw Hegemony warships. The smart ones knew they could not win. The stupid ones tried to fight and were destroyed quickly. Either way, the Hegemony always won. "Beginning hyperspace jump in 60 seconds, announced the navigation officer. Zexathara felt the familiar excitement before a battle. His species loved to fight, and easy victories were the most enjoyable. There would be no risk, no real danger, just a simple show of force followed by total surrender. "All ships report ready, sir," his second officer said. "Excellent. After we take this planet, we will have 3 days of shore leave on Hegemony Prime. I hear there are new entertainment centers there." The crew made more happy sounds. Shore leave was always good after a successful conquest. They could spend their bonus money and tell stories about their victories. "Jump commencing now," said the navigation officer. The stars outside disappeared as the 50 warships entered hyperspace. In normal space, it would take thousands of years to reach their target. With hyperspace technology, they would be there in minutes. Zexathara walked to the big viewing window at the front of his bridge. Soon he would see another weak planet fall to the might of the Hegemony. Soon he would add another victory to his long list of conquered worlds. "Sir, we will exit hyperspace in 30 seconds, the navigation officer reported. "All weapons, prepare for battle," Zexathara ordered, though he knew they would not need to fire many shots. "Remember, We want to keep the planet in good condition. Only destroy their military forces and government buildings." "Yes, sir," came the replies from around the bridge. "Exiting hyperspace now," announced the navigation officer. The stars reappeared outside the viewing window. In the distance, Zexathara could see a yellow star with several planets around it. One of them was blue and green and white, their target. "Beginning sensor sweep of the system," said the sensor officer. Zexathara rubbed his hands together. In a few minutes, he would contact the creatures on the planet and demand their surrender. They would be so scared when they saw his mighty fleet that they would give up without a fight. Then his ships would land and begin taking control. It would be another perfect day for the Hegemony Empire. Another weak species would learn that resistance was useless. Another planet would become part of their great civilization. The sensor officer was taking longer than usual to complete his scan. Zexathara began to feel slightly impatient. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, I am getting some unusual readings. Give me a moment to confirm them." Unusual readings? From a primitive planet? Zexathara frowned, but decided it was probably nothing important. Maybe the creatures had more metal in their cities than expected. Or maybe they had launched a few small satellites that the intelligence reports had missed. Nothing that would matter in a few minutes when their planet belonged to the Hegemony. The sensor officer stared at his screen with growing confusion. The numbers did not make sense. He checked his instruments twice, then 3 times, but the readings stayed the same. "Sir," he said slowly, "I am detecting much more activity around the target planet than our intelligence reports indicated." Commander Zexathara turned away from the viewing window. "What kind of activity?" "Orbital structures, sir. Many of them. Far more than a primitive species should have." Zexathara walked over to the sensor station. The screen showed the blue planet surrounded by hundreds of small dots. Each dot represented something artificial in space around the planet. "How many structures are we talking about?" The sensor officer counted again. "At least 300 separate installations, sir, and they are much larger than I would expect from a species that just learned spaceflight." "Show me details on the largest ones." The screen changed to show close-up images of massive space stations orbiting the planet. They were huge. Some were the size of small cities. Their design was strange, not like anything in Hegemony records, but they were clearly advanced technology. "Sir, these look like military installations," the sensor officer said. His voice was worried now. Zexathara studied the images. The structures had what looked like weapon ports and shield generators. They were positioned in perfect defensive formations around the planet. This was not the work of a primitive species. "Weapons officer, what is your assessment?" The weapons officer looked at the data and frowned. "Sir, if these are military stations, they appear to be very well armed. I am seeing energy signatures that suggest weapons comparable to our own." "That is impossible. Check your instruments." "I have checked them 3 times, sir. The readings are correct." Zexathara felt the first touch of worry in his stomach. This was not going as planned. "Navigation officer, confirm our position. Are we in the correct system?" The navigation officer worked at his controls for several minutes. "Sir, we are definitely in the right place. This is the system from our mission briefings. Yellow star, 9 planets, the 3rd planet is our target." "Then why does everything look different from our intelligence reports?" "I do not know, sir." The communications officer looked up from her station. Her face was pale. "Sir, I am picking up radio transmissions from the planet." "What are they saying?" "The language is not in our translation database, sir, but there are many signals, very many, and they are using advanced encryption that will take time to break." Zexathara walked back to the center of his bridge. A primitive planet should not have hundreds of space stations. It should not have advanced encryption. It should not have weapons that could threaten Hegemony warships. "Sir," the sensor officer called out again. "I am detecting movement. Ships are launching from the planet and from the orbital stations. How many ships? Counting now, sir. So far, I see over 200 small craft, and... Sir, there are larger ships as well. Much larger. The main screen changed to show the space around the blue planet. Hundreds of small ships were rising from the surface and moving away from the space stations. Behind them came larger vessels that were almost as big as Hegemony cruisers. Those are warships, the weapons officer said. His voice was flat. Definitely warships. Zexathera stared at the screen. This was wrong. Everything was wrong. The intelligence reports had been completely incorrect. This was not a primitive planet with weak defenses. This was a heavily fortified world with a large military fleet. Sir, the ships are moving toward us, the sensor officer reported. They will be in weapons range in approximately 1 hour. 1 hour. Zexathera turned to his second officer. Contact the other ships in our fleet. I want to know if they are seeing the same things we are. The second officer worked at his controls. After a few minutes, he looked up. Sir, all ships confirm the same readings. Captain Mordak of the Thunder Spear says his intelligence officer thinks we may have attacked the wrong planet. The wrong planet? Zexathera's voice rose. How can it be the wrong planet? Sir, navigation is double-checking our coordinates now. The navigation officer was working frantically at his station. Finally, he looked up. Sir, these are definitely the correct coordinates. This is the system we were ordered to attack, but... But what? Sir, I am checking the planet's designation in our current database. Our intelligence files called it Target 7739, but the navigation computer shows a different name. What name? The navigation officer's voice was very quiet. The local inhabitants call it Earth, sir. The bridge went completely silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. Every crew member had stopped what they were doing. Even the air recyclers seemed to pause. Earth. Every citizen of the Hegemony knew that name. Every child learned about Earth in their early education. Earth was not just another planet. Earth was different. Earth was dangerous. Did you say Earth? Zexathera's voice cracked. Yes, sir. Earth. Zexathera felt ice water flowing through his veins. Earth was not in the target files because Earth was on the forbidden list. Earth was on the do not engage under any circumstances list. Earth was where they came from. The humans. Sir, the communications officer said, and her voice was shaking. I have broken some of the encryption on their radio signals. What are they saying? Sir, they are speaking human language. These are humans, sir. The bridge crew exchanged terrified looks. Humans were the most dangerous species in known space. Humans were the reason half the galaxy had non-aggression treaties. Humans were the species that had fought 3 major galactic powers at the same time and won. Sir, the tactical officer whispered, the approaching ships. They are not just moving toward us. They are surrounding us. Zexathera looked at the tactical display. The human ships were spreading out in a perfect combat formation. They were not approaching to demand surrender or to negotiate. They were approaching to fight. And Zexathera knew, with horrible certainty, that his 50 ships were about to face the most deadly military force in the galaxy. Commander Zexathera stood frozen in the middle of his bridge. The word Earth echoed in his mind like a death sentence. Around him, his crew members looked at each other with growing terror. Every child in Hegemony space knew the stories about humans. They were told as warning tales, lessons about why some species should never be disturbed. Humans came from Earth, the death world, the planet where everything was poisonous, where the weather could kill you, where even the plants were dangerous. But the humans themselves were worse than their planet. Much worse. Sir, the communications officer said, her voice barely a whisper, I am receiving more transmissions. They know we are here. What are they saying? Sir, they are... They are talking about us. They are calling us hostiles and discussing battle plans. Zexathera closed his eyes and tried to think. Every member of Hegemony Military Command knew the official policy about humans. Do not engage, do not threaten, do not even enter their space without permission. The humans had made it very clear that they did not want visitors, and everyone in the galaxy respected that wish, because everyone knew what happened to those who did not respect it. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "I am analyzing the human ships. Sir, these are not primitive vessels." "Show me." The main screen displayed detailed scans of the approaching human fleet. The ships were sleek and deadly-looking, with armor plating that seemed to absorb sensor beams. Their weapon systems were unlike anything in Hegemony databases. "Sir, I cannot get clear readings on their capabilities. Their hulls are made from materials I do not recognize, and their energy signatures are... Sir, they are very high." Zexathera studied the images. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, like a school of hunting fish. There was no wasted motion, no uncertainty. These were the ships of a species that knew how to fight. "How many ships are approaching us now?" "Over 400, sir, and more are launching every minute." 400 ships. Zexathera's fleet had 50. But numbers did not tell the whole story. These were humans. Humans who had once fought the entire Confederation alliance and won. Humans who had destroyed the Nexus Empire's grand fleet at the Battle of Vega Prime. Humans who had made the Void collective retreat to the other side of the galaxy. "Sir," the sensor officer said, "I am detecting massive power buildup from the orbital stations around Earth." "What kind of power buildup?" "Sir, the energy levels are... they are beyond anything I have seen before. If those are weapons, sir, they could destroy our entire fleet with a single volley." The weapons officer looked up from his console. "Sir, I recommend we prepare for immediate retreat." "We cannot retreat yet," Zexathera said, though his voice lacked confidence. "We have not even made contact. Perhaps we can negotiate." The crew members stared at him as if he had lost his mind. Negotiate with humans? The species that had turned diplomacy into a form of warfare? The species that had once ended a peace conference by conquering both sides? "Sir," the communications officer said, "I am receiving a direct transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through." The main screen changed to show the interior of a human ship bridge. A human female in a blue uniform looked directly at the camera. Her eyes were cold and calculating. Behind her, other humans worked at control stations with calm efficiency. When she spoke, the translation came through clearly. "Unknown vessels, you have entered Earth space without permission and in violation of galactic law. Identify yourselves immediately and state your intentions." Zexathera stepped forward. His throat was dry, but he had to try. "I am Commander Zexathera of the Hegemony 3rd Assault Fleet. There has been a mistake. We were not aware this was Earth space." The human woman's expression did not change. "Commander, you arrived in battle formation with weapons powered and shields raised. Our sensors indicate your ships are configured for planetary assault. Explain." The truth was impossible to speak. How could he tell her that they had come to conquer Earth? That they had planned to enslave humans and strip their planet bare? That Hegemony intelligence had somehow classified Earth as a primitive target? "There has been an error in our navigation systems," he lied. "We will withdraw immediately." The human woman tilted her head slightly. "Commander, our records show that your species signed the Galactic Non-Aggression Pact 40 years ago. That pact specifically prohibits military vessels from entering human space. Are you saying the Hegemony is now breaking that treaty?" Zexathera felt sweat dripping down his face. Every question the human asked made things worse. If the Hegemony was seen as breaking treaties, other species would side with the humans. It would not be just one battle. It would be a full galactic war, and everyone knew how human wars ended. "No, we are not breaking any treaties," he said quickly. "This is simply a navigation error. We will leave immediately." "Commander," the human said, and her voice became harder. "You have 50 military vessels in assault formation aimed at our homeworld. You will power down all weapons and prepare to be escorted out of our space. Any attempt to leave without escort will be considered an act of war." Zexthara looked around his bridge. His crew members were watching him with desperate eyes. They all knew they were trapped. They could not fight humans and hope to win. But they could not simply surrender either. That would mean disgrace and possibly execution when they returned home. "Sir," the tactical officer whispered, "the human ships are moving into attack positions." On the screen, the human commander was still waiting for an answer. Behind her, Zexthara could see other humans preparing for battle. They moved with the calm confidence of a species that had never lost a war. "Sir," the sensor officer said urgently, "the orbital platforms are now fully powered. Sir, if they fire, we will all die instantly." Zexthara stared at the human woman on the screen. She was young by human standards, probably no older than 30 Earth years, but her eyes held the wisdom of a species that had conquered death worlds and turned them into fortresses. "Commander," she said, "I am waiting for your response." Zexthara knew he had only seconds to make a decision that would determine whether his crew lived or died. And he was beginning to realize that no matter what he chose, the Hegemony Empire had just made the biggest mistake in its history. They had attacked Earth, they had threatened humans, and humans never forgot and they never forgave. Commander Zexthara looked at the human woman on his screen and made the only choice he could: survival. "All ships!" he shouted into his fleet communications. "Emergency withdrawal! Full power to engines! Retreat immediately!" The human woman's expression did not change, but Zexthara saw something flicker in her eyes. It might have been disappointment, as if she had hoped he would make a different choice. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, "jump drives are charging. We need 60 seconds to reach hyperspace." 60 seconds. Zexthara watched his tactical display as his 50 ships began turning away from Earth. Around them, human vessels moved like hunting predators. They were fast, much faster than any Hegemony ship should be. "Sir, the humans are moving to intercept," the tactical officer reported. "They will reach us before we can jump." "All ships, raise shields and prepare for combat," Zexthara ordered. He hated giving the command, but they had no choice now. The first human ship reached his fleet in 30 seconds. It was small compared to a Hegemony dreadnought, but it moved like a living thing. Energy beams lanced out from its weapons, and Zexthara watched in horror as they cut through the shields of the cruiser Bone Crusher like they were made of paper. "Sir, Bone Crusher reports shield failure," his communications officer said. "They are taking heavy damage." "How is that possible? Their shields are military grade." "Sir, I do not know. The human weapons are... They are unlike anything we have seen." More human ships reached the fleet. They attacked with surgical precision, targeting engines and weapon systems. They were not trying to destroy the Hegemony vessels. They were trying to disable them, which was somehow more terrifying. "Jump drives charged in 30 seconds, the navigation officer announced. Zexthara watched his ships die one by one. The dreadnought Iron Fist exploded in a ball of fire as human torpedoes overwhelmed its defenses. The cruiser, Death's Edge, lost all power and began drifting helplessly through space. "Sir, jump drives are ready!" "All ships, jump now!" Zexthara waited for the familiar feeling of entering hyperspace. But nothing happened. His ship remained in normal space, surrounded by human attackers. "Report!" he shouted. "Sir, jump drives are not responding. Something is interfering with hyperspace generation." On his tactical screen, Zexthara could see strange energy fields surrounding his fleet. The humans had somehow created a barrier that prevented faster-than-light travel. "Sir, we are trapped. the navigation officer said. The human ships continued their methodical destruction of the Hegemony fleet. They moved in perfect formation, each attack coordinated with deadly precision. Zex Thara had fought many battles, but he had never seen anything like this. His communications officer looked up with terror in her eyes. "Sir, I am receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander." "Put it through." The screen showed the same human woman as before. Behind her, Zex Thara could see displays showing the battle. Human casualties were listed as 0. Hegemony casualties were climbing rapidly. "Commander Zex Thara," the human said, "you chose poorly." "We are withdrawing," Zex Thara protested. "We are not attacking your world." "You came here with assault ships and invasion plans. You powered weapons in our space. You threatened our homeworld." Her voice was calm, but Zex Thara heard death in it. "These are acts of war." "It was a mistake, a navigation error." The human woman shook her head slowly. "Commander, we have accessed your ship's computers. We know why you came here. We know you plan to conquer Earth and enslave its people." Zex Thara felt his blood turn to ice. Humans had somehow broken into Hegemony military systems. They had read the mission files. They knew everything. "We also know," the human continued, "that you were sent here by the Hegemony High Command. This was not a mistake, Commander. This was a planned invasion." Around him, Zex Thara's bridge crew stared at their instruments in despair. More ships were dying every minute. The Thunder Spear had lost all weapons. The battle cry was venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. "What do you want?" Zex Thara asked. "We want answers, Commander. We want to know why the Hegemony thought they could attack our world. We want to know who gave the orders and why they thought Earth was a target for conquest." Zex Thara understood now. The humans were not just defending their planet. They were conducting an investigation. They wanted to know who was responsible so they could respond appropriately. The Hegemony Empire, with its thousands of worlds and trillions of citizens, was about to face the wrath of humanity. And everyone in the galaxy knew what happened when humans went to war. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "we have lost 30 ships. The survivors are requesting permission to surrender. Surrender to humans." The most terrifying words in any language. "Sir," the communications officer added, "I am receiving emergency transmissions from across Hegemony space. Our long-range beacon is broadcasting our situation to all military commands. At least someone would know what happened here. Maybe someone would learn from their mistake." "Commander," the human woman said, "prepare to be boarded. You and your surviving crews will be taken into custody for questioning. What will happen to us?" For the first time, the human woman smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "That depends, Commander, on how cooperative you are, and on what we learn about your government's intentions toward Earth." Zex Thara watched more of his ships die or surrender. In the distance, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. It looked peaceful and beautiful. It looked like the kind of world that would be easy to conquer. But looks could be deceiving. Earth was not a peaceful world full of primitive creatures. Earth was the fortress home of the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and the Hegemony had just declared war on them. "Sir," his second officer said quietly, "what should I tell the crew?" Zex Thara looked around his bridge one last time. Soon, humans would be walking through his ship. Soon, he would be answering questions about Hegemony military plans and government policies. And soon, the human fleets would begin moving toward Hegemony space. "Tell them to prepare for boarding," he said. "And tell them to pray that the humans are more merciful than we would have been." Outside his ship, the last few Hegemony vessels were surrendering. The great invasion fleet was destroyed. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Zex Thara knew that human warships were already preparing for the next phase of this war, the phase where Earth came to visit the Hegemony. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of her flagship and watched the last Hegemony ship being towed toward Earth's orbital shipyards. The battle was over. What had started as an invasion attempt had ended as a complete disaster for the attackers. Of the 50 alien warships that had arrived, 12 were being taken intact for study. 37 had been destroyed when they refused to surrender. One had been allowed to escape, deliberately. "Admiral," her aide approached with a data pad. "Final casualty reports." Chen took the pad and reviewed the numbers. Human casualties, 0 dead, 3 minor injuries from equipment accidents. Hegemony casualties, estimated 47,000 dead, 12,000 captured. It was typical for a battle against humans. Other species still thought in terms of massive armies clashing against each other. Humans had learned to fight smarter, not harder. "What about the interrogations?" Chen asked. "The alien commander, Zexthara, has been very cooperative, so have most of his surviving officers. They seem genuinely terrified." Chen nodded. Fear was a useful tool in interrogation, but she took no pleasure in it. The aliens had made a terrible mistake, and now they were paying the price. "What have we learned about their government's intentions?" Her aide consulted his datapad. According to the prisoners, the Hegemony High Command classified Earth as a primitive target for easy conquest. Their intelligence files were completely wrong. They had no idea they were attacking the human homeworld. "How is that possible?" "We have had diplomatic contact with the Hegemony for decades." "It appears to be a failure in their military intelligence system. The diplomatic files and military files were not properly coordinated. The military branch thought Earth was just another primitive planet." Chen walked to the large viewport and looked out at Earth. Her homeworld looked peaceful from space, but she knew better. Hidden beneath those white clouds and blue oceans was the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. Earth had weapons that could crack moons, orbital platforms that could destroy entire fleets, and defensive systems that most species could not even imagine. But more than that, Earth was the symbolic heart of human civilization. To attack Earth was to attack every human in the galaxy. It was an act that demanded response. "Admiral," her aide continued, "Earth Command wants to know our next move." Chen smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Prepare the 3rd, 7th, and 12th fleets for immediate deployment. Full battle configuration." "All 3 fleets, Admiral. That is over 600 warships. The Hegemony attacked our homeworld. They came here planning to conquer Earth and enslave its people. 600 ships seems appropriate." Her aide made notes on his pad. "What about our objectives?" Chen pulled up a star chart showing hegemony space, 47 star systems, hundreds of billions of citizens, thousands of military installations, all of them now legitimate targets under human military doctrine. "First, we send a message to Hegemony High Command. They have 72 hours to issue a formal apology, pay reparations for the attack on Earth, and surrender the officials responsible for planning this invasion. And if they refuse, then we remind them why attacking Earth is considered the worst strategic mistake any species can make." Chen had studied military history. She knew the pattern. Every few decades, some species decided that humans looked weak or distracted. They would test human resolve with a small attack or border skirmish. They always learned the same lesson. Humans did not fight wars to win territory or resources. Humans fought wars to ensure that their enemies never wanted to fight them again. "Admiral, should we contact the other major galactic powers? Let them know what happened here?" "They already know. Our long-range sensors detected at least 6 different species monitoring this battle from safe distances. Word will spread quickly. That was also part of the pattern. Other species liked to watch when someone was foolish enough to attack humans. They wanted to see how the lesson would be taught this time." "What about the Hegemony's allies? The Consortium and the Trade Federation have mutual defense agreements with them." Chen laughed softly. "Check the diplomatic communications. I guarantee you that both the Consortium and Trade Federation are already sending messages to the Hegemony, telling them they are on their own." Her aide worked at his data pad for a moment. You are correct, Admiral. Both governments have issued statements saying they do not support unprovoked attacks on human space. Of course they had. No one wanted to be on the wrong side of a human war. The smart species had learned from history. The Confederation had tried to fight humans and ended up surrendering half their territory. The Nexus Empire had challenged human expansion and was now a minor power hiding in the Outer Rim. The Void Collective had made the mistake of threatening human civilian ships and had been driven completely out of the galaxy. Admiral, the communications officer called from across the bridge, we are receiving a transmission from Hegemony High Command. Put it through. The main screen showed an alien that looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect. He wore elaborate military decorations and spoke in the formal tones of high government. I am Supreme Commander Klickstar of the Hegemony Military Council. I demand the immediate release of our captured personnel and an explanation for your unprovoked attack on our fleet. Chen stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. Supreme Commander, your fleet entered human space without permission and in clear violation of galactic law. They arrived in battle formation with the stated intention of conquering Earth. We responded appropriately. That is impossible. We have no plans to attack human territory. Commander, we have accessed the computer systems of your ships. We have interrogated your officers. We know this was a planned invasion ordered by your government. The alien's expression changed. He had not expected humans to break hegemony military encryption so quickly. If there was a military operation, it was conducted without proper authorization, he said quickly. Chen shook her head. Commander Zexathara had official orders signed by your military council. This was not a rogue operation. The Supreme Commander was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, more careful. What are your demands? Full apology for the unprovoked attack on Earth, reparations to be paid for damages and expenses, the officials responsible for planning this invasion to be surrendered for trial, and a guarantee that no hegemony military forces will enter human space for the next 50 years. And if we refuse? Chen smiled the same cold smile she had used with Commander Zexathara. Then you will learn why every other major power in this galaxy has standing orders never to threaten Earth. The Supreme Commander ended the transmission without another word. Chen turned to her aide. How long until our fleets are ready for deployment? 18 hours, Admiral. Good. Send a message to all human colonies and military stations. Tell them the hegemony has committed an act of war against Earth. Full mobilization is authorized. Her aide paused in his note-taking. Admiral, full mobilization means bringing the fortress fleets out of deep storage. Chen nodded. The fortress fleets were humanity's ultimate military asset. Massive automated warships that had been built after the last major galactic war. They were kept in hidden bases throughout human space, waiting for the day when someone was foolish enough to threaten Earth itself. That day had come. Admiral, the communications officer called again. We are receiving messages from 17 different species. They all want to confirm that they have no military alliance with the hegemony. Send back standard diplomatic responses. Tell them we have no quarrel with anyone except those who support unprovoked attacks on human space. Chen looked out at Earth one more time, her beautiful, peaceful, deadly homeworld. The hegemony had made the same mistake that others had made before them. They had seen humans as just another species to be conquered. They were about to learn why that was wrong. In 72 hours, if the hegemony refused to accept responsibility for their actions, human fleets would begin moving toward their space. And when humans went to war, they did not stop until their enemies understood that attacking Earth was the worst decision they could ever make. The lesson would be taught again.